Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, On Screen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig. Welcome to On Screen, the official podcast of the Total Screen. My name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And today we are going to be talking about Nosferatu, the new one, the most recent version of Nosferatu. We're also have an On the Horizon segment. We have a short On Beat segment. We're going to be talking about 2 trailers there. But we're mostly going to be talking about Nosferatu, the Robert Eggers version, which Will has finally gotten to see, and so we're going to chat about that. But let's get started with our On the Horizon segments.
On the horizon.
On the Horizon is where we talk about what's coming up in the next week or so, and we're going to start with Adolescence. This is a limited series about a British 13-year-old who's arrested for murder, and that is coming on Thursday, March 13th to Netflix. Long Bright River is another limited series. This one stars Amanda Seyfried from Veronica Mars, and she plays a cop who finds connections to her life in some recent crimes. And that's coming on Thursday, March 13th to Peacock. The Wheel of Time returns for its 3rd and I believe final season. I think it's ending with this one. On Thursday, March 13th on Amazon Prime. Dope Thief, which stars Brian Tyree Henry from Atlanta, and Wagner Moura played Pablo Escobar in the Narcos series on Netflix. But the 2 of them are in a show called Dope Thief, and that's coming on Friday, March 14th to Apple TV+. The Electric State, we've talked about this one a few times, including talking about some of the trailers. This is the one with Chris Pratt and Millie Bobby Brown. Yes. And it's like a 1980s robot post-apocalypse kind of movie. And that's coming on Friday, March 14th on Netflix. The Day the Earth Blew Up, the Looney Tunes movie, is coming on Friday, March 14th to theaters. Opus, this is a movie that stars Ayo Edebiri and John Malkovich, where John Malkovich plays like this kind of famous guy that kind of re-shows up and invites all these people to a private kind of concert, and it's like a horror film, I think. It's like a weird thing. That's coming on Friday, March 14th to theaters. And Novocaine is also coming on Friday, March 14th. That's the one with Huey from The Boys, and he plays a guy who can't feel pain.
Oh, yeah.
He's trying to get his girlfriend back. But that's coming theaters on Friday, March 14th. That is it for our On the Horizon segment, and now we're going to move on to On Beat. On Beat is our news segment. It's kind of a short one this time. We're only talking about 2 trailers. That's it. And we're going to start things off with the trailer for Terminator 2D No Fate, which is a 2D licensed demake of Terminator 2 in like the SNES style.
Looks amazing. It looks amazing. It's got these really cool, like, 16-bit style cutscenes. It looks like it's following, like, all the plot beats of Terminator 2. Mm-hmm. So you know.
There are a lot of scenes you're watching the trailer and you're seeing the gameplay and going like, I'm remembering this from Terminator 2 now, you know?
It looks like it has, like, a bunch of different gameplay styles, too. It's got, like, Contra style, running gun, and then you switch to, like a beat 'em up. Then there's, like, a chase sequence, which is, like, the highway chase sequence from the movie, but it's like a 2D.
You got the other, like, freeway chase scene with, like, the helicopter.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it looks like it switches up, like, between, like, various gameplay styles, depending on the setup, which looks really cool. What I love about this is by an indie developer, Bitmap Bureau, who, like, got to start developing games for retro consoles. New games. They're most famous for, Xenocrisis, which is, like, a Smash TV style shooter that they developed originally for Neo Geo, then ported to Sega Genesis and N64, Dreamcast, and modern systems. So it's really cool to see them get picked up for a licensed title for modern systems. One of, like, the most impressively genuine, like, retro style to it. Like, this looks like this could be an SNES game.
There kind of has been like this weird little resurgence of these kind of like old licensed like D-Mate games.
We got like
recently they did the Evil Dead one and also was it Halloween?
Halloween and Evil Dead, yeah, those were like the same project, basically, because those came out like together, like as part of a set. They did that. This also like follows the trend of like 2D games in general, because we also got, in addition to this, we got coming this year, we got a new 2D Shinobi game from Sega, and Koei Tecmo is releasing a new 2D Ninja Gaiden game.
Yeah. It's got that kind of like retro style. So not just 2D, but like kind of 16-bit 2D.
Yeah, 16-bit 2D, yeah. Ninja Gaiden, you know, like, so it's kind of crazy. We're seeing this resurgence in like old school 2D games, and not just from smaller, but like from bigger publishers too.
With like big licenses and stuff, which is interesting.
Yeah, which is cool.
Yeah, I like the idea of doing these kind of like classic movies like this, you know, Terminator 2, like getting this kind of a licensed game like later on that kind of can, now that the movie's been out for so long, they can really play on like all the kind of nostalgia beats. Whereas if they had made the game alongside the movie as they would back then, it wouldn't have done the same things, you know, like it wouldn't be able to kind of play on those nostalgia beats because they weren't nostalgia beats yet, you know?
Right, yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of cool to like explore that. Like it'd be cool to see some other stuff. It'd be cool to see like a Predator game like this, you know?
Oh, that'd be
something
awesome.
Along those lines. It'd be like really fun.
It'd be cool to see like
that.
an actual good Predator game, because the only one we got was on the NES and it was awful. It was one of the worst games I ever played.
Yeah, it would be cool to kind of get those kind of things for some of these kind of classic movies of that era, you know?
Yes. Oh, definitely.
Citizen Kane, you know, that in like Atari style. I don't know. Like, it'd be fun to get some, like, interesting ones here and there, you know? But it looks like that's kind of a trend that's kicking off here, and this is kind of one of the big players in that trend, so that's cool. Next, we got a trailer for a series called The Bondsman, which I think that's Amazon Prime, I'm not sure. But this one's got Kevin Bacon, and it's a kind of familiar plot. We've seen this before. Famously, R.I.P.D. kind of had this kind of plot. Brimstone was a TV series that didn't even make a full season, I don't think. That was one that I quite enjoyed on Fox.
Yeah, plot-wise, this is not an
Reaper's
original
like
idea.
A more comedic version of it. But yeah, it's basically the idea is some people escaped from hell and the devil gets a guy to track them down and return them to hell.
Yeah.
Kevin Bacon is the bondsman that's doing that this time. He's licensed by hell to return these people who have escaped from it. And they have powers because they were in hell.
Kevin Bacon is a bondsman who was killed and was resurrected, and he's hunting demons for the devil. And he's got handlers, which are like these two women.
Very familiar plot territory. It's nothing really original, but I've always liked everything I've seen like this. I haven't seen R.I.P.D. I've heard that's not that great. I haven't watched that one. But I have seen Brimstone, and I did love Reaper, and those kind of follow the exact same plot points.
This looks like it's kind of like in between Brimstone and Reaper, because this looks like it's a lot more serious than Reaper was, but it's still comedic. Still has a comedic tone to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say it kind of looks like it leans a little bit more towards the Brimstone side, because it is more like...
Yeah, it
Reaper was decidedly a comedy.
Yes, this is more gritty, but there's also like a lot of like comedic elements in this too, especially like involving Kevin Bacon's handlers.
Those are definitely very Reaper-esque.
Yes.
Those parts, like, really remind me of, like, the DMV lady in Reaper, you know, that was like a demon.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So it looks fun. It looks fun, and that's all you can ask for.
Exactly. And that is it for our On Beat segment, and now we're going to move on to our final segment, full spoilers. This week on Full Spoilers, we are going to be discussing Nosferatu, the Robert Eggers version that came out last year and just recently did not win any Oscars. This is based
You're going to be sore about that.
This is based on both Dracula by Bram Stoker and Nosferatu by Henrik Galeen. And I think we've mentioned this before, but Nosferatu's interesting case because it is an adaptation. The original Nosferatu was an adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula that ripped it off without using the name, you know? It basically created its own thing.
Yeah, it was an unlicensed...
copied the exact story, like beat for beat, pretty much.
It was an unlicensed, unauthorized adaptation
and they actually,
of Dracula.
Bram Stoker's widow, because Bram Stoker had already passed away by the time this had come out, saw the film and was outraged and sued and won. And they basically had to destroy every copy of the movie. But, you know, of course, some slipped by. And so anybody who's seen a copy of Nosferatu, like, you weren't supposed to have.
You weren't supposed to have it. It became like one of the most famous films of the silent era.
It also had a pretty big impact on, like, vampire lore in general, like, even beyond the Dracula aspects. Like, in Bram Stoker's Dracula, you know, he made it so that Dracula and vampires were weak to sunlight. It weakened them, but it didn't, like, kill them. The idea of sunlight killing vampires originates with Nosferatu. That's, like, a big example of that. It was a major film for, like, German Impressionism, because it did some crazy stuff with, like, shadows that hadn't really been done before, which then went back on to re-influence things like Wes Craven's, his version of Dracula, you know?
Right, yeah, exactly.
Where they did all the kind of like crazy shadow stuff. Or no, wait, no, it wasn't Wes Craven. It's Francis Ford Coppola.
You're talking Francis Ford Coppola.
Wes Craven did a different version of Dracula that came after that.
Dracula 2000.
Yeah, that's it. Francis Ford Coppola's version of Dracula did like some of the shadow stuff influenced directly by Nosferatu, you know?
Which I don't think Dracula 2000 was like a Wes Craven film. They just like, he was a producer.
It or something?
They put his name on it. Wes Craven Presents. Yeah. Which is like what they like to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
There was like Francis Ford Coppola that did the big Dracula movie with Keanu Reeves and Gary Oldman.
Yes, with Gary Oldman and all that. Definitely.
So there's this weird history between Nosferatu and Dracula, like kind of, you know, Dracula being the obvious inspiration for Nosferatu, but then Nosferatu doing things that would go on to influence further adaptations. One of the
interesting things too is like Nosferatu, the way they designed the vampire, like the vampire doesn't look human in Nosferatu, the way like Dracula does. If you watch Dracula, you know, you got Bela Lugosi, you know, he looks like a person.
Or like Gary Oldman.
He looks like a person. Count Orlok at no point looks like a normal person.
In the old one.
In the old one, yeah. In the old one, at no point does he look like a normal person.
He's got kind of like almost like elf ears.
Yeah, he's got like big elf ears. He's got like his fangs. He doesn't like have the traditional vampire fangs. He has almost like bucktooth like fangs. You know, like it's become like it's become sort of like an iconic vampire design to the point where like it's been integrated into like vampire lore.
Yeah,
like there's like Vampire the Masquerade, which is like a big like vampire.
I was just about to bring that up.
Yeah, like RPG, like tabletop RPG that's been like adapted in so much, has a whole clan of vampires that are basically Nosferatu.
Yeah, like basically all the clans in Vampire the Masquerade have like a name, and they all have like a fatal flaw or something, like a weakness that comes from that clan or whatever. And the Nosferatu are disfigured.
Yeah, the Nosferatu are disfigured. What We Do in the Shadows, the film, not the TV series,
the Master was Nosferatu based.
One of the housemates was Nosferatu based in the film.
Yeah. In the series, the Master is kind of Nosferatu based. The Master in Buffy the Vampire Slayer in the first season was kind of Nosferatu based too.
Right, yeah. So it's become like its own identity. And so one of the radical things that this movie does is Robert Eggers throws that design out the window for more of a walking corpse design.
Yeah, and he also goes back to kind of the roots, because what influenced Dracula even before Nosferatu was Vlad Tepes the Impaler. And this version of Count Orlok looks very much like Vlad Tepes the Impaler. You know?
Yes, he does. Yeah, he does. So it goes back to that.
And the mustache and like the sharp angled nose and all that kind of stuff. Like those features are very like Vlad Tepes. So yeah, this is not only just drawing upon Dracula and Nosferatu, but also on Vlad Tepes, and like going back into like folklore, which is very like a Robert Eggers thing to do, is to like go back into the folklore and like reinterpret things based on folklore.
Eggers is like a huge history buff. It's like, and reinterpreting that, bring it out. And you know, I think the redesign works because, it's based on that. And also it's kind of like based on the idea that vampires are like, they're dead. They spend a lot of time sleeping in dirt.
Yeah. And that's part of the folklore too, is just the idea that vampires are like kind of decrepit, they're gross looking things, you know?
Right, yeah.
They're not sexy.
Not sexy. This is not a sexy vampire. This is not Twilight.
I am a hunger.
It'd be funny if they cast Robert Pattinson in this, because Robert Pattinson has been in Robert Eggers' film, at least. He was in Lighthouse.
Yeah. I mean, they did cast a very good-looking guy.
Aaron Taylor Johnson, yeah.
No. The Count Warlock is Bill Skarsgård. He's a very attractive guy, you know?
Yeah, Bill Skarsgård. It's funny because, like, you were saying, the makeup's transformative, like, you can't tell. I was like, yeah, you know what, that's pretty true, except for when, like, you see his eyes. When you get close up of his eyes, it gives the game away. It's like, those are Bill Skarsgård eyes.
It's not just
100%.
The makeup did it, but it's not just the makeup, though. It's the performance is just completely
the performance
transformative.
Is great. Yeah, the performance is great. Yeah, the voice he came up for Count Warlock is haunting. And this is actually my first time watching a Robert Eggers film, believe it or not.
It is? Okay.
Yes.
It's my second. I am not a Robert Eggers expert.
I haven't seen, like, The Witch. I haven't seen The Lighthouse.
I've seen The Northman. That's the only one I've seen.
I haven't seen that either. So this is my first one, and man, the way he builds and everything, the movie takes on, like, this dream, like, it feels like a fever dream. It's shot and it plays out like a one long fever dream.
Yeah, it's not as fever dreamy as, like, say, Lynch, you know?
It's not Lynchian. It's not Lynchian.
It has those moments, like, when he goes to the castle.
Well, I think,
Warlock,
like,
there's just so many moments that's like, is this real? Is this not real?
And I think it's, like, a deliberate choice because you see, like, the characters are, like, going through this, right? So, like, stuff will happen. They'll be in moments of terror, then they'll wake up in their beds or whatever, and everything is so, like, they're kind of discombobulated. I think, like, it's purposely done to, like, keep the audience just as discombobulated as the characters are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like,
these characters they're almost like, especially in this movie, they're almost like made drunk by, like, the power of Count Warlock or something, you know? Like,
right.
They're kind of put into this weird state. Like, when the character of Thomas is in the castle, he's kind of doesn't really know what's going on. He's kind of not sure. He drinks something. Maybe it's in the drink, but he doesn't know. He's kind of like uncertain about everything. And he's just, you can just see it on his face. Like there's a shot where like he sees like a suit of armor and it looks like it moves. It's very subtle though. Like you might not even notice it. And there's like another part where the Count tells him to come closer to the fire and the camera kind of like turns around him and then he's like right next to the fire. And it's just like these weird things where it's just kind of like what's going on. Like he's on like something, he's not like seeing things as they're actually happening. It's like he's got like some kind of time compression going on around him.
Yeah, it's so trippy.
And they do it with his wife, Ellen, played by Lily Rose Depp. That's Johnny Depp's daughter, for anybody who doesn't know.
She basically, it starts with like a little backstory of her character. She encounters Warlock in her childhood. I think like it says 2 years have passed since that first encounter.
It says a few years later. It doesn't specify how many.
Okay, yeah, it says a few years later at the beginning. So like time has passed now. And so basically she's having these visions. She's having these episodes constantly. It's because like she's basically like connected to Warlock, like psychically, like through his power, you know, she's under his influence.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's something like interesting about her even before that. Like there's something different about her that was what attracted Count Warlock in the first place. The kind of like weirdness of her is not only tied to her relationship to Count Warlock. Like it's implied that there's something kind of different about her, you know, like that she's kind of like a little ethereal or something, you know what I mean? Like she's something otherworldly about her as well. And that's like what is attracting Count Warlock to her. What allowed her to basically summon him and awaken him.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, great performances all around. We've mentioned Bill Skarsgård's Count Warlock and his voice and just everything they did with his character. Again, Lily Rose Depp. She hasn't really done too much. She's kind of a new actress. She's Johnny Depp's daughter, so she's, you know, a Nepo baby. But she's like, really makes a jump in this one. She like swings for the fences in this film. They did these things based on like kind of Japanese performance art apparently for like the way she kind of like shakes and moves sometimes when she's kind of under the influence of Warlock. And it's really haunting. It's almost hard to watch at times. But yeah, just fantastic performance from her. Also a fantastic performance, likewise, from our Renfield counterpart, Herr Nock, who plays Thomas's boss, who sends him off to Count Orlok to make this deal. And the whole time he's doing it, he's actually working for Orlok, and he's basically Orlok's version of Renfield.
He's Renfield, because like we see the scene where like he's sending him off, and he's talking up the count.
Providence!
Like, Providence. This is Providence, this is a good thing. And then the next time we see him, he's naked and he's like scribbling and he's chanting and he's like, so we're like, oh yeah.
And then the next time we see him after that, he's eating a pigeon's head.
Yes.
He's loony and he just plays it, again, swings for the fences, plays it very like stage play. A lot of this feels like kind of stage play like, in the way the performances are done.
Like very, very Shakespearean.
Yeah. You get that also from even like you have the character of Friedrich, who's played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, and his character has a lot of like kind of very powerfully spoken lines, very like, gravitas. Putting his stomach into it when he gives his lines, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, very like stage play like in the way they did that. And it's, that's very like an Eggers thing. Like you'll notice that, and I saw that in The Northman. I saw that in, what I've seen from like The Lighthouse and stuff, even though I haven't seen that movie, the clips and stuff I've seen, it's very much like that. But yeah, so it's like, that's like kind of an aspect of his style that comes through here, of Eggers' style. And I think there's kind of like 3 real points, and I've only seen 2 Eggers movies now, but there's 3 real points that I like kind of distinguish as his style now. And one is that kind of like that stage play kind of aspect in the performances. The second is like his historical accuracy and how much effort he puts into that. And that includes like lighting scenes with like only fire, or like everything else is like just immaculately lit so that it looks like everything's coming from a single lighting source, like fire or like, lamps or something. And the way that is done. And then the third thing is just the cinematography in general, which goes back to like who he works with, but this has absolutely stunning cinematography in this movie. I think the way I can explain this the best is, do you know what 3-point lighting is?
No.
Okay, so in filmmaking, when you learn filmmaking, one of the first things you learn when you get into cinematography is 3-point lighting. And basically the idea is that if you're lighting a subject, this doesn't have to do with backgrounds or anything, it's only on subjects, so like people, or like an object that you're placing close to frame and turning into like a subject or something. You basically need 3 lights. You can have more than 3 lights, but you're creating 3 sources of light, basically. You have a key light, and that kind of is blasting, that's like your brightest, most powerful light, and it's blasting the person with light. But what the key light does by blasting you with so much light is that it creates really hard shadows. And then you have something called a fill light, and the fill light kind of softly fills in some of those shadows. So you can still see the shadows, but they're not like pitch black. Like you can see detail inside the shadows. And then you have backlight, which kind of like is designed to kind of dust behind the character or something so that it separates them from the background, so that you can see a clear distinction from where the background is and where they begin. That's the real distinct thing that I've noticed in Eggers films, and in particular in Nosferatu, is his backlighting. And an aspect of backlighting is called edge lighting, and it's like the idea that you can kind of see this barely kind of like light seeping around the edges of like dusting around the person's like silhouette.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like the edge lighting in Nosferatu is immaculate. Probably the best I've ever seen in anything. It's ever present. Every single shot, like this is such a dark movie, like where you can barely see stuff a lot of times. It's very, very dark, but every single shot, the subject is backlit in such a way that you can immediately distinguish them from the background. And it makes it like, it just stands out. It makes it, when you watch like the last season of Game of Thrones and you get to some of those dark episodes and you just can't see a fucking thing. That's because they're not properly backlit. That's because like you can't separate them from the background. So this is a movie where things are probably just as dark as they are in like those like Game of Thrones episodes and stuff. But because they're lit so well with the backlight, you can separate things from the background. So you can tell what's happening. You can make out details and stuff, even though it's really dark and undersaturated and everything's kind of presented that way. Yet you can still like see what's happening. So I think that's kind of amazing. Apparently they did a lot in this movie.
I had no problem seeing what was going on in this movie in like any shot, which I appreciate.
And it's very dark, like to be.
Yeah, it's a very dark. Yeah, it's a very dark. It's a black and white movie, like
well,
it feels like a black and white movie.
Yeah, it's just very desaturated.
Yeah, it's very desaturated. Yeah, it feels like a black and white movie at times. Actually, they switch off because there are like scenes that were in black and white, like straight up, and then there's other scenes that are in color.
There's nothing that's straight black and white, like because there's even when it looks like it's straight black and white, there's like blues and stuff that are like leaking through.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Yeah,
true.
it's very targeted though. Like they eliminated colors, like straight up eliminated colors, like they eliminated yellows in certain scenes and stuff like that, for like night shots and stuff. They also apparently did a lot of what's called day for night, which is like when you're filming during the day but making it look like it's night, which is tricky to do. Yeah. Which is tricky to do because at daytime you have this thing called the sun, and it's just blasting everything with light, and so you have to like find a way to make that light seem less harsh and not show the skies in a way where it like stands out that the sky is like white, at nighttime or something. But they did a lot of like day for night shooting in this, but like masterfully so. This is like a thing that we're going to be seeing a lot more of now. Cinematography has improved in this way. The movie Nope did a lot of day for night stuff as well. It's like a more recent thing that you're seeing them able to kind of really pull off day for night in a way that they couldn't before.
Well, you see day for night a lot in a lot of D-grade like 80s and 70s films.
Yeah, but it's more obvious.
Yeah, it's a lot more obvious. Yeah.
Yeah. Like they've done day for night forever. It's just like now they've kind of got it down to a science where they can really like in post-production, they can like eliminate the issues that made it obvious that they were actually filming it daytime,
Right.
But you can get that harsh like sunlight to your benefit and stuff now with those day for night techniques that they're using now. So it's just immaculately shot. I just don't even know what else to say. It's every shot a painting.
Oh yeah, it looks gorgeous. The entire movie looks absolutely gorgeous. It draws you in. That's part of like what draws you into it.
Yeah, it's great. The sound design is amazing. The music there's no like catchy tunes to like really get you humming afterwards or something. It's that kind of typical horror, like shrill kind of sounds and stuff that pull into an orchestration, but it's good. It's well done. But yeah, and the sound design, the gulping of the blood.
Oh, jeez, yeah. Ugh. Did not like that.
Yeah, his wheezing, it's just so much into the sound design of
so much designed to like physically make you uncomfortable.
Oh yeah,
just like the sound, yeah.
Like the makeup, like not only is he kind of like dead looking and ghoulish, but he's also like his eyes are kind of like cataract over and like it's just so well done.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's talk about Willem Dafoe.
Yes, Willem Dafoe plays the Van Helsing character in this movie.
And this one named Professor Alban Eberhard von Franz.
Von Franz, yeah. We're just gonna call him Franz, please.
Hans and Franz?
Hans and Franz.
They'll pump you up.
They're gonna pump you up. So Franz, played by Willem Dafoe, he's the Van Helsing of this movie. He is a brilliant professor, a brilliant scientist who kind of like abandoned science and like got lost in the occult, in studying the occult.
Mm-hmm.
So basically,
again, he's Van Helsing.
Yeah, with all this weird stuff going on, like he's the expert that they turn to help them solve this. And he also like may be insane.
But it's interesting. This movie has like a number of like weird kind of Dracula connections and Nosferatu connections because Willem Dafoe was previous in a movie. What was it called? It was Shadow of the Vampire. Yeah, Shadow of the Vampire. That was about
John Malkovich.
Yeah, it was about the making of the original Nosferatu movie, but it was done in a fantastical way in which
it
Willem
posited
Dafoe
that
played
F.W. Murnau, who filmed Nosferatu, it posited that Nosferatu was played by like a real vampire that he found.
Yes.
Yeah. And Willem
that's the
Dafoe
character
played,
Willem Dafoe played, yes.
Yes, Willem Dafoe played Count Orlok in that movie. So
Yeah.
so it is kind of a fun connection. I don't know if that was intentional or if it's just because like Willem Dafoe is a Robert Eggers regular. He was in The Lighthouse.
That's probably the majority of the reason, but it's just like an interesting connection.
Yeah.
Another one is Nicholas Hoult was just recently, like a few years ago.
Just recently in a movie as Renfield, you know?
Yeah.
And like this action horror comedy Dracula story.
Yeah, with Nicolas Cage as Dracula.
With Nicolas Cage as Dracula. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's like another like weird connection.
Bill Skarsgård, who plays Orlok, he played a vampire previously in one of the first Netflix original shows, Hemlock Grove, and he played a vampire character in that.
His brother played a vampire in True Blood.
Yes, famously, and just recently, continued that role in What We Do in the Shadows.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Surprise is the word I was looking for. But yeah, so there's like these weird like connections of like kind of people connecting.
It's sad. If What We Do in the Shadows was still going on, we could have had Bill Skarsgård show up as Count Orlok.
Yeah. Another thing here is that Bill Skarsgård was originally this film took like something like 9 years to make or something. Like it was in production, or not in production, but in like pre-production like 9 years ago, and they just kept falling by the wayside and then getting picked up again. And so that means, characters were cast differently and stuff. Bill Skarsgård was originally playing Thomas Hutter, Nicholas Holt's character. And that's who he was supposed to play
interesting.
in Nosferatu, but then ended up being recast as Count Orlok, the Dracula parallel. Similarly, Lily Rose Depp played Ellen Hutter, like Thomas's wife, and in the original, premise, the setup
I thought they were trying to get Anya Taylor-Joy to play Lily Rose Depp. Yeah, that didn't work out.
Yeah, just scheduling issues. Because Anya Taylor-Joy is another
she was
regular.
She was in The Witch.
She was also in The Northman.
Yeah.
So she's another, Eggers regular.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of Eggers regular, we've talked about Willem Dafoe's character. There's another kind of doctor character, Wilhelm Sievers, played by Ralph Ineson.
Yes.
He's another regular, Eggers. I think he's been in all of Eggers' films, actually. I think he's the only one here that's been in every single one. I know he was in The Northman. I know he was in The Witch. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Maybe he wasn't in The Lighthouse. I'm not sure. But he's been in pretty much all of them.
Who else in The Lighthouse? Because my understanding of that movie is it's basic. It's just the two people, right? Isolated in The Lighthouse.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He might not be in that, but he's been pretty much in all of them, though, besides that. He's been in the most of everyone here, I believe. Unless another smaller actor. I don't know. Maybe the guy who plays Herdog's been in as much stuff. I don't know. But Ralph Ineson, who plays that doctor, he's going to be playing Galactus in Fantastic Four.
Yes, he is, yeah.
So that's kind of like a fun thing. You get a chance to kind of see him before you see Galactus. So did you get Galactus vibes from him?
Oh yeah, I said the
whole time you're watching, you're like, Count Orlok should be no problem for you. You just devour him like you do the whole planet.
I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely Galactus in 19th century Germany, for sure.
But yeah, it's like just there's this kind of fun kind of connections like that you get with, directors will have their favorite actors and stuff. That's why, you watch a Quentin Tarantino movie, you're almost guaranteed to see Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh yeah. Directors have the actors they love to work with, and actors have directors that they love to work with. Like Dave Bautista, he said he's reiterated recently, the only way he's never doing Drax again unless James Gunn calls him up to do it.
Yeah. And he's also said that he'd be up to play another character in the DCU, and
Yeah, because Dave Bautista
loves
working with James Gunn, and that's it.
He was also pretty fiercely loyal to James Gunn when the allegations came out.
Oh yeah, when Disney was canceling him.
Yeah.
He was.
Disney canceled him, but it was the canceling was some right.
Well, it was a right wing thing. But Disney was the one fired him off of Guardians 3, which was that whole thing.
That whole debacle, he was pretty fiercely loyal, and you get that, and it's kind of cool to see it. It gives you the warm and fuzzies about those relationships.
Yes, it does.
This director can't be a really bad guy because a lot of people seem to really like him.
Right? A lot of people are willing to stand up for him.
So Robert Eggers kind of is in that group. He's got a lot of his regulars that he uses a lot, and I'm excited to see if anybody else we know is going to pop up in the new Labyrinth movie. You're going to get Bill Skarsgård playing.
Bill Skarsgård is going to be the Goblin King.
Yeah.
Lily Rose Depp is going to be Jennifer Connelly's character.
She might be too old now for that.
She might be too old. Younger, they gotta go younger. It's supposed to be a teenage girl. But yeah, Robert Pattinson is one of the Muppet characters. That's gonna be weird because like a lot of like Labyrinth was like that's Jim Henson, that's Muppets, that's like puppets. Are we gonna do it like without puppets? I don't know. I think that was like a big part of the movie's identity.
That's the thing. I remember when that news came out that Robert Eggers was attached to Labyrinth. I have a friend who I told him the news thinking that he'd be psyched for it because the two of us were just about to see Nosferatu. You know, like it was like the day before we went to go see it or something. And I texted him and said like, oh, did you hear Eggers is going to be doing like a Labyrinth movie? And he was like pissed off. He's like, they shouldn't touch Labyrinth. You know, they just leave it alone, leave it a thing. And I'm like, I have a completely different philosophy on those kind of things. Like, I'm never like the leave it alone kind of guy because I'm always like, it doesn't ruin the original. Like, you can always go back to the original.
Still there, no matter
and like the idea of Eggers, and now you've seen an Eggers movie, like the idea of Eggers doing Labyrinth, like entices me like so much.
I do want to see like what he's gonna do with it.
Exactly. Like, I'm like so curious.
Like, is he going to do like a movie with puppets? And that'd be like so weird to see coming from Eggers. Like,
yeah, how dark is he gonna go? You know, like
right.
how is he gonna make? Is this gonna be like a straight up like gothic horror? Or is this gonna be?
It's a property that was like from the Jim Henson company. It's owned by Disney now. Disney owns the Jim Henson company. You know, like so it's kind of like
they bought his corpse.
This is a Disney movie, essentially, you know, like, so we got Robert Eggers is making a Disney movie as, like, the headline. I don't know, sounds weird.
I think he would use puppets just because he's very, you know, and like, just recently we talked about, like, Oppenheimer, and I again went on about my annoyance with Nolan being so obsessed with practical effects and stuff.
Right. But
my issue is never, my issue is never that people want to do practical, or that they want to push the practical. I just think that in that case, it ruined, like, the effects that they were going for. Whereas Eggers is also very practical heavy.
Yes,
like, he does digital stuff too, but he's mostly, like, wants to shoot practical and in camera, you know? So, with that said, I'm thinking, yeah, it probably will be puppets of some sort. For like his version of Labyrinth, if we ever even get it. But that's off topic. We're just all over the place because it's bringing up ideas as we're talking about.
It's bringing up ideas, but it's fine. But I don't have much more to say about Nosferatu. So like, if you want to like do like the closing thoughts on the movie, because I think like pretty much reached the limit of what I have to say about the movie.
Well, let me ask you a few questions.
Okay.
So this was your first Eggers experience. Are you now eager to like go and watch more Eggers films?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I actually, I'm gonna pitch this to you live on the podcast. I actually had an idea, and Eggers was the first one that came to mind. I had an idea a while ago of, like, we should do a segment where we, like, work our way through, like, the complete catalogs of a director.
Okay.
And I'm like, Eggers is a prime one for that.
It's a good one
because he doesn't have that many movies.
Yeah, and, like, they're all, like, quality films, from my understanding.
Yeah. He's only got, like, 5 features, I think, something like that.
Yeah, so that'd be, like, a good one to do. And wouldn't it be, like, too time-consuming?
Yeah. So, like, that's something to look forward to in the future. We're gonna do an Eggers run.
Okay.
Maybe we'll do like a movie.
A future advocates.
We'll just do them in a row. Like, I don't think we'll do it as advocates, and I don't think we'll do it as like a single podcast. Maybe we'll just, when we get a stretch where we have like a month where we don't have anything to do, we'll just do back-to-back Eggers movies every week or something.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good to me. Yeah.
Just kind of work our way through his catalog, like in order, you know, starting with like The Witch, you know, maybe even doing some of his shorts if we can find them. But yeah, it's like he's one of the most visionary directors around right now. That's kind of like the main thing that's really exciting about Eggers. He's like Denis Villeneuve, who did like the Dune movies and stuff. Similar in that way. He's just like a very visionary auteur. And it's nice to have directors like that when things can get kind of a bit samey these days.
Oh, absolutely. I agree.
But yeah.
It's a breath of fresh air.
So I'm happy that you enjoyed this. It seems as much as I did, which I'm excited about. And I want to start a journey and watch some more Eggers movies. I think that'll be exciting. I've been wanting to watch The Witch and never got to, so. And The Lighthouse is another example of something I've been wanting to get around to, but just never did. The other thing is, what did you think of the horror elements of this movie? Because I know...
Oh, I mean, the horror elements were strong.
You mentioned your discomfort in certain scenes and stuff. The blood gulping was very uncomfortable.
Like the sound design, the deeping was like unsettling. You know, then you got like the dreamlike imagery, like the disorientation, and like scenes don't seem to flow chronologically.
Sweaty confusion.
Sweaty confusion. So they make you uncomfortable, they make you like disoriented as a viewer, and everything is like so dark and foreboding through the whole movie, and the sense of dread just seeps off of every frame of this film.
Oh, it's like palpable. Like the film is like the brightest scene in the entire film is like the last scene, basically. Like the last shot is the brightest shot.
Yeah.
And everything before that's got like this sense of like thickness to it. Like the clouds are just hanging over. Like everything's just kind of dreary and it feels like oppressive.
Oh yeah. There's not one spot that's like bright or cheery. Yeah. There's like no reprieve.
I really like the part where you had the character of Anna Harding, played by Emma Corrin. Did you recognize that? She was in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh, yeah. As Xavier's sister.
Yeah. But she played Ellen's friend, Frederick's wife, and the scene where she was first attacked by Orlok, when he gave, Ellen that ultimatum, basically, that, in 3 days that he would come back and she must submit to him.
Yes.
And she was attacked, and then, immediately, she started kind of, being very similar to Ellen in the way she was talking about, it feels like it'll never be light again, or, these kind of, that oppressive, weight of, as they referred to in the movie, melancholy, when they referred to it with Ellen's character, which is a whole other aspect of this movie. There's a lot of stuff in this movie about the way women were treated in this era.
Right, right.
Nobody believes them, and nobody, everything's tie her to the bed, and if that doesn't work, then make sure she's wearing a tight corset. It's
right. Oh yeah.
That's a whole other aspect of this movie that we haven't really gotten into, and I don't think we're really the right people to get into that kind of topic. But I'm sure there's conversations about that you could find if you're really interested.
I'm positive, that there are.
Yeah, but I love how they were able to do things like the death of the children. They didn't show much. You just kind of see shadows.
You don't need
and
to
silhouettes.
show much.
And it's freaking horrifying.
It is. Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's because of that, the sound design and stuff. It's the gulping and just the kind of nonchalant way he just kind of throws their bodies down, like it's an empty bottle he finished, that's all it is to him. It's nothing else. And he even refers to that multiple times throughout, his conversations with Ellen, where he kind of refers to himself as nothing but a hunger. That he is only insatiable and that's it. And that the only thing that can quiet his appetite is her, and it even kills him at the end, because in the end, the trap they set is that she succumbs to him, she gives in to him, and keeps him there drinking from her as the sun comes up and kills him.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
there's a point
her.
when he even recognizes the sun coming up and still goes back to drink more. He just can't not,
Right, yeah, he can't stop.
Yeah, he's like a force of nature. He's not like a conscious being almost. He's more just an appetite, as he referred to himself, as just an appetite and nothing else,
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was really cool, and the way they tied that into all the plague stuff too was really interesting. I really dug all of that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I really have to say about it as well. So I'm happy you finally got to see the movie, and it sounds like you really dug it. So thank you for checking that out, Will.
You're welcome. Absolutely. Thank you for recommending it.
And say it with me on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Providence!
Providence!
Okay, so next week we are going to be sticking to the Bill train. We're going to be sticking to the Bill Skarsgård train by watching another Bill Skarsgård movie that also came out. I believe it came out either last year or the year before.
Came out I believe it was last year.
No. Yeah, it came out last year. Definitely came out last year.
Yeah.
He had
still pretty recent.
He had 3 big movies come out last year.
Yeah, he's crazy busy in demand.
One of them was
actor.
complete garbage.
Yeah. Which one was that?
The Crow. Crow.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Jeez, I'd memory hold that movie.
He did his remake of The Crow, he did his remake of Nosferatu, and he also did this movie, Boy Kills World, which could almost be called a remake of Running Man. So,
Yeah.
we're going to be watching that next week. Boy Kills World. If you want to watch along with us, that's on Hulu, so you can check that out there. But until then, thank you everybody for listening. You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'm at Tyson Gifford. Will is at Voxel Hero on those platforms. You can also check out our website, thetotalscreen.com. If you go to our website and open up Container Store for any of our podcast episodes, scroll down to the bottom paragraph, you'll find all of the relevant links to our SoundCloud page, our RSS feed, all of our social accounts, all that stuff's there, so you can check that out. You can also subscribe to the podcast to your favorite podcast client of choice, like Apple Podcasts or Pocket Cast, and the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel, as well as additional content. Again, all of the links to that are available on our website, thetotalscreen.com, in the Container Store for any of the podcast episodes, so check there. Thank you everybody for listening. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to the OnScreen podcast, the official podcast of The Total Screen. Visit our website at thetotalscreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.